the people need to hear this. Yeah, so Chris and I were just talking about aging, and I said the surprising and the most depressing thing about aging so far is your percentage of pictures where you look at them, you're like, "Ooh, I look old in that picture." The percentage starts going up.
Yeah.
And like I feel like right now, like, okay, cool. Like this dude looks like he's in his 40s. Like, what Whoop is telling me about my aging being slower than average is correct. But then I look at some pictures and I'm like, oh boy, that dude looks like a prune.
Yeah. It's like comparison is the thief of joy, but on your own photos of yourself.
1,000,000%.
Yeah.
So we have big news and we need to make sure we do a good job with this. We have a sponsor. So who gets to do the sponsor read? Open Phone is our new sponsor, underwriting production of this.
Open Phone. Shout out to them. Good people. Let's see. Should we do the ad read like 15 times so they really feel like it's worth it? Just every 5 minutes.
Well, I think we should definitely just have every guest talk about Open Phone.
Yeah.
Have you ever used Open Phone? How do you feel about it?
Yeah. Wait, what's our I got to pull up the stuff. All right. Open Phone is sponsoring Founders Live. Traditional phone systems weren't built for modern business. Missed phone calls mean missed customers. Open Phone is the smarter alternative, built to help you work anywhere, stay connected, and never miss an opportunity. You can run your business on one app from your phone or your computer. Open Phone logs calls, creates summaries, and automates follow-ups. Its AI agent can answer calls, qualify leads, and route customers even after hours. 90,000 businesses have already switched. Plans start at $15 a month, and you can try it free. Get 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/founders. That's openphone.com/founders. And if you have existing numbers, they'll port them over for free. Open Phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Boom. Thank you for sponsoring.
It's amazing.
All right, that's a wrap for this week. Good.
Yeah, see you guys later. Thanks.
That was it.
So I'm tagging them in my Twitter post about this. So that should be good. And then I got to remember to pin everything. And so who do we have as guests today? We have Red Zeller.
Two good ones. We got Andrew from Fibe, which is a like very high-end events company for technology companies. It's like a B2B events company. It's fascinating business. And then Reg Zeller from Kingcast. Is it Reg or Reg?
Reg. I think it's short for Reginald.
Yeah.
So who is Andrew on Twitter?
So he is, let me find him. His handle is ANDRUYEUNG.
Andrew,
ANDRUYEUNG.
Found him.
Nice.
All right. I got everything pinned to my profile. And we're live on YouTube today, which I'm pretty excited about. We got our YouTube channel racking up viewers there. And it looks like they still have the same restream bug where it looks like we're talking into the ether and nobody's watching.
That's nice.
So what's new, man?
What is new? Oh, you know what is new is this morning. So on Twitter, you hear about there's like 40 venture-backed companies that do various like PDF to Excel, PDF to Word doc conversion. And obviously you can do this using Excel, but it's pretty bad within Excel. So I thought maybe I'm going to use one of these fancy AI tools. And so I just Googled free PDF to Excel on Google. You get like a whole page of options. The first page on Google is 5 ads. So I click on all 5 ads. 3 of them immediately ask for a credit card on free PDF to Excel. The other 2 take me through like a 10-minute process and then go, it's converted. Now we need your credit card. So then I go back to Google. I find a subreddit. The subreddit has all these like open source products that allegedly do this. Like 50% of the links are broken. Like the internet is this, Google specifically is this like, oh, and then you go back to Google and it's like half of the things are like blog posts done for SEO where there's no actual product, or just like a
Yeah.
list of 40 products mentioned with like no good reviews, no interesting. So it's like I spent probably 40 minutes going down this rabbit hole, and I was like, Google's a piece of shit. It just like for things that you just need, like finding free software or like a free tool to do a thing, it is horrible.
So this would have felt like something I would have gone to Chat GPT and said, "Give me a Python script to do this."
Yeah.
Did you go down that path?
They
Did it not
eventually
work?
did. Yeah, but I started by like, there's got to just instead of doing that, there's got to be like, this should take 15 seconds. But then I was getting progressively
Right.
angrier at Google. So then I just wanted to see like how bad all of the first page results are, because it's going to be a good tweet.
And so, did it turn into a good tweet or no?
Well, I don't know. I haven't. I had to jump on here. So after in 2 hours, we'll know.
So, in terms of your writing process, how often are you writing it and then coming back and revising 15 minutes later? And how often are you just YOLOing it, click send, you're done?
I think it's always YOLO.
YOLO. So it just comes out well written. Do you
Yeah.
actually?
I mean, I make a lot of typos when I first write it, and then I'll sometimes ship it with that, and then I'll go
Mhm.
back and I use like the tweet editor a lot, because I'll read something. Like if something gets 4 likes in 4 minutes, I just delete it. And then if something starts picking up, if it's at 40 likes in 4 minutes, I'll read my old post and go, oh, this actually has a typo. Now I'll edit it, which I think actually editing a post gives you this mini boost because it
You think
shows
it
up
helps?
2 times. I think it does. There's probably some way to like more formally A/B test this, but I've had posts where it's a slow burn. Like I'll post something, and to my audience, getting 10 likes in 3 minutes is pretty bad. But I'll say I want to like keep this up, see how it does, and I'll edit it, and it just feels like the velocity of likes starts to take off much faster after editing. So
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like people read the original tweet and they're like, this is dumb, it has an obvious typo, I'm not going to like it. Or I think it's just like, I often will see in a single scroll, you'll see like 2 identical posts, and one will be like, Chris has edited this tweet, or there's a newer version of this tweet, but then it
Newer
just
version.
takes you back to the edited one. So you get like a 2-for-1 when posting.
So when you do longer form stuff, like more than just a tweet length, do you go through? Do you find a revision process helps you, like
Yeah.
coming back 30 minutes later or a day later?
Yeah, everything like essays wise starts in here, which is just like in my notes, and I'll be sitting at lunch and I'll think of something. And sometimes those just turn like I don't have enough to write a full blog post or an essay. I've been meaning to start writing longer form stuff for like a year, and it still hasn't happened. So,
Have
but
you
I
tried
have done.
YouTube videos? It's a
Yeah,
great way to make CrossFitters and Cybertruck owners very mad at you.
it's good. I can't wait.
Uh, I did a 12-minute video 15-minute video exactly on CrossFit.
Mhm.
And the first kind of intelligence test of the whole thing was I did it about CrossFit Inc., the business, not about CrossFit, the movement. And talked about the rise and fall of the business. It's up for sale, all this kind of stuff. And literally, there are multiple CrossFit like evangelists, like total believers, who spent hours creating response videos. And one showed up in my feed last night because the guy was so mad. He put out an hour video of him breaking down my video. It got a grand total of 230 likes, 230 views. And I was like, man, does this make you feel better?
I mean, it's probably net very good. Like a lot of the like music video discovery now for me is
Yeah,
mostly like famous lyricist reacts to like this new music video, and I'm like, oh, I didn't even know that this like is this like actually kind of an interesting song, but like the only way that
right.
like I see the song now is like some drummer breaking down like the drum part, or some like vocal coach, right? So it's probably good. Like it just gives you like, even at like a micro level, like pushes more people to your channel, which is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I don't have the appetite for controversy to actually watch any of these takedown videos, so I put them into Chat GPT. But the common thing people do when they have a point of view they want to have on YouTube, I've learned, and this happens on Twitter too, but YouTube happens a lot. They will go through and they will nitpick a small data point that you got wrong, For example, like there was this CrossFit event that I mistakenly off the top of my dome said, I think it was like $50 or so. It was $20. And like everybody was like, oh, if you get that wrong, you're not credible. It's like, well, how does something off the dome like that, or like in my Cybertruck video, literally some guy's like, "You're not credible. It wasn't a bowling ball that broke the window at the launch event. It was a small metal sphere." And I'm like,
Like, that's worse.
I was like, so does the conclusion that it was a great launch event like change because it's not a bowling ball? Like, you're not credible. See you later. Bye. You don't know what you're talking about. It's like, come on, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that the multi-layered reactions are funny because now I see like Doug DeMuro does a car video and somebody reacts to it. And then it's like, I'm reacting to this guy's reaction of this Hyundai. It's just like, how many layers can the Russian nesting doll get with these reaction videos? It's probably a very deep ecosystem. So,
yeah. It's a weird place. The thing I've been shocked about, and I may have said this last week on YouTube, so there are really smart people on YouTube. Like it feels like you remember how every reply felt like 80% of them felt like super smart on Twitter, like in the early 2020s. Like it was a place where intelligence was gamified and it brought out of everybody. Like I'm seeing remnants of that, like in YouTube. Like it's pretty crazy. I didn't
is it like
expect it.
like are the most of the comments smart, or is it like the people creating the content, or is it a mix of both?
I think it's so what are you saying? Are you saying it's like
Like
because there's
do you get like the early 2020 smart Twitter vibes from YouTube because like when you make a video, a lot of the people commenting on your video are like adding thoughtful things to the conversation? Or is
yeah.
it that like you just see a lot of other YouTubers doing smart like original content?
No, like there are smart people on YouTube and they are getting attracted to smart content.
Interesting.
Yeah, like that element of the algorithm that I think Twitter had back in the day is alive and well over there. At some point, Andrew's here, but at some point we should talk about how stupid people are on TikTok. Like, oh my god! But at least TikTok pays.
Yeah, that's I guess so. Andrew, welcome.
Hey, what's up, guys?
Hey, how are you?
Good, good. It's been a long time no see. It's been a few months.
Yeah, it has. All right, so Michael, let me set the stage for you. So I think I had like followed some of the stuff that Andrew was doing for a little bit, and then I was sort of at this event for this company that I invested in New York, and it was like this incredible event. And I don't know, there were probably 500 or 600 people there, and it was this crazy like rooftop party, but it was like all like founders.
Yeah.
And I was sort of like fascinated that just on fairly short notice that this founder could get like such an amazing group of people together. And then he's like, oh yeah, like I just, used Andrew, like we've done a bunch of events with him. And so then I was like looking into this whole category of, I don't know how Andrew, how you would describe it. I'm curious to get your intro, but my sort of way of meeting Andrew was like going to this event, just meeting some like incredible New York founders. And Andrew was like, oh yeah, I've done like 16 events in this venue, like in the last couple of years. And I do like, I've done like hundreds of these events, like all over the place. So I don't know if that's accurate, but that's like my recollection of meeting you. And I just found it was like a very fascinating business. Cause I think coming out of COVID, one of the things that I've heard over and over from founders is just like every company is looking for ways to get their employees, get their partners, get their customers like out in the wild, like doing interesting things together and sort of getting back in person. And I think Andrew's built a pretty interesting business around like accelerating some of that in the tech space. So do you want to give a quick background, quick intro?
Yeah, that was a great intro. I think that sort of sums it all. The additional parts I'd add to that is, so I never had a background in events. I was never like an events planner or organizer. I was actually a product manager. So I used to work in big tech. I moved to New York 5 years ago, just when COVID had hit and everybody had left, and there was this mass exodus. And so when I moved here, I didn't know anybody. And I was like, listen, I have to start like hosting these meetups off Twitter and off Reddit. And that was how I found my first 5 friends. And then a lot of founders randomly started coming. And so, I'm obviously skipping a lot of steps here, but 2 years ago, I ended up quitting my job at Google. turning it into a tech events and conference company. And so we do about 100 events a year for about 20,000 people across 8 cities across America. And I'd say about a third of our audience are sort of the seed to Series B stage founders and CEOs. Everyone else is sort of like, product managers, engineers, investors, and that sort of crowd.
Awesome. And what has been like the smallest event that you have helped throw, and like what's like a massive event for you right now?
Yeah, smallest event probably like a 12-person dinner. We'll host these really curated sort of salon style dinners. And so a month ago we hosted one with one of my friends, Henrik, who's the founder of this company called BarkBox, like a consumer doggy treats company. And he was visiting New York, and I thought I'd just get together a room of 10 most interesting people that I think you'd enjoy meeting. And then largest event, we did one in Austin for about 3,000 people. So we come to South by Southwest every year, and we do this massive party. And that's sort of our top funnel for all the smaller curated founder dinners. But yeah, I'd say 3,000 is probably the highest number we've hit.
So how does the business model work? You're like the producer and I guess the event kind of creator, right? Like, so there's a lot of times I think in the event space, there's the event producer and then there's the people that are the company behind it. So you're like doing everything from conception to production, and that's the company.
Yeah, so we don't do any event planning for we're not an event planning company.
Right.
We sort of put on events just under sort of my personal brand and some of the other sub brands I've built. So we do everything end to end from the design of the event. So what's it going to be? Is it going to be a conference, a dinner? Are we going to rent out a mansion? To inviting the guests. Most of the guests are from my personal network. And then we do the end to end production of the actual event. So the planning, logistics, all that stuff. We get the media from it, and we put it online. And I think you asked about the business model. We don't charge tickets. Well, we only have, let me say that again. We have one event each year where we charge tickets, and that's our annual conference. But majority of our revenue is from event sponsors. So banks, law firms, recruiting companies that want to get in the room with these founder types.
And how do they think about the investment there? Like to do a 500 person event, let's say, obviously depending on the makeup of people, I imagine, certain like dev tools could be very interested if it's a group of engineers, or obviously like, Mercuries and Brexes and Ramps of the world are all trying to go after founders. And so I guess like, how do you tend to work with kind of the same pool of sponsors over and over? Or do you find that some of these like bigger institutions like Wells Fargo and JP Morgan are like trying to also tap into like an early stage, founder ecosystem and sort of connect with you guys in that way?
Yeah, it's a great question. So with our smaller events, so anything under, let's say, anything under 30 people, the more curated events where really our team is handpicking every single person that should be in that room. We'll have banks and law firms sponsor those, and really their primary objective is leads and conversations with those founders. They don't find as much value in the big 3,000 person parties. Those cater to a different customer segment. Those are typically for some of these social apps that are trying to launch. We've done it with dating apps and mostly consumer companies that are just looking just for reach in general and sort of brand awareness. Although they do get conversions from the large events just because we run a really tight email funnel to all the people that are coming. So we retarget them, and we encourage them to download the app or click the offer or whatever it is.
That's cool.
And then in terms of your team to make it all work, how are you guys structured? Are you doing everything yourself, or do you have other folks working with you?
Yeah, we're pretty lean. So I have 2 people offshore that do a lot of the marketing and CRM stuff and a lot of the data enrichment. Just to, as you imagine, when people apply to the event, we try to cross-reference their data with Crunchbase and see how much money they've raised and how much revenue they're doing if it's public. And then I have 2 people in New York who help with the logistics, and one of them is my chief of staff. He helps with sort of the general administrative stuff. And then we have a lot of volunteers. So we have about 700 volunteers in New York that help us put on the larger events, and a lot of them are like product managers at like Microsoft and like people that work at McKinsey that want access to like this really exciting early stage startup stuff. So we run a really large volunteer program, which is how we do 100 events a year with just with 3 people in New York.
So to do this business, you have to like going to events. You personally do, because how many of those do you go to?
I go to a third of them, so maybe 30 a year.
Okay.
Yeah, I go to all the
Yes.
dinners. I'll speak at a conference, but then the really large 1,000-person parties, I'll skip those, just because, yeah, those are a little overwhelming for me. I mean, and it's mostly I used to love going to those, and so a lot of them are sort of new grads and like the rotational product managers at Google that love just going and meeting people.
So normally people who get into a business like this one that I would say is great, but isn't super scalable, and end up building like an incredible network. Next thing you see is like 3 years down the road, they're running a venture fund. So is that your future?
I'm not sure yet. I've started to do a bunch of investing. So I wrote a very small angel check in the Chris, the company you invested in as well, that through the party, and I've done about 20 angel investments, all very small checks.
Nice.
So honestly, I'm trying to see if I'm any good at it, just because I get a lot of deal flow from the events, but I don't know if the deal flow is any good. I think it's decent, but we'll see in the next year or so how the portfolio is doing.
Yeah, you'll know in 10 or 15 years. Just keep firing angel checks.
Just keep writing checks.
You'll know eventually. Yeah, I was gonna, and it was funny because like this is one of Michael's favorite questions, and I think it's a great question. And ironically, I think we actually spoke about this at the event, like where, outside of just, using this for deal flow, and obviously you have this like massive network now, particularly it sounds like in New York, but throughout Austin and San Francisco and all these like major tech hubs. Where do you see like the future of this business? Like, or do you even think about that? Or is it like, we're just trying to provide a valuable service to founders and I don't really care about the sort of like massive scale? Or do you have some vision here where it's like, there's some, events company that's doing 100 million a year and there's like a pretty clear path to get there in the next, 10 or 20 years?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't thought too much about it yet. Right now it's still really fun. We're about a year and a half in. You're right. It's not scalable, but the margins are, for an events company, the margins are 70-80%. So, pretty decent margins. The next step is, because right now we're focused on the early stage CEO founder audience, we're experimenting with other vertical communities. So we're looking at CMOs of enterprise companies, we're looking at CTOs. And then because we have sort of the sponsorship sales playbook and we have the events production sort of playbook, we can run these other verticals of events that are more scalable because they don't have to be under my name, and we can create a brand behind it. And then maybe even down the road, build a media business, podcast, newsletter behind that, and maybe even sell it. So we're experimenting with that. We're doing a CMO dinner where we'll have a few CMOs at these public companies coming in next week. So we're seeing how that goes. Trying to run it when I'm not in the room, but I think with everything's going, with all this AI slop, and every day I get like 20 or so just like really shitty AI written emails, sales emails, and it makes me more bullish on IRL as a sales channel. Just getting your prospects in the room, and for a lot of our partners, these events are their number one sales channel. So expanding into other segments and other buyers is probably the next move for us.
Are there like, I guess because you've done this now hundreds of times, both kind of personally and through the business, like, are there obvious or non-obvious things that you think go into a good event, or maybe even just take like the smallest, side of that? Like if you're just like a founder listening to this and you're like, yeah, like my cold emails are going nowhere, but maybe I can't afford Andrew yet, or I want to kind of test the waters myself before I go and pay you to sort of like host or co-host one of these things with me. Like, I just want to try to get like 12 of my prospects in a room at a steakhouse. Like, where do they start? And then like what goes in? What would you recommend that a founder like think about as they're putting like a small event together?
Yeah, I think most people overthink it, and they're like, how do we, after the event, how do we like capture emails and retarget them? And how do we get this awesome venue or the hottest restaurant that nobody's even, heard of, or, all these different things. But what most people miss is just the basics that have to do with call it the user experience or the customer experience, where, I've been to a lot of these dinners where they don't even ask you what your dietary restrictions are, or you walk into a room and let's say you're a CEO of an established company, and nobody greets you at the door, and nobody smiles and shakes your hand. And that's one of the reasons we have so many volunteers, at these larger events, is because I want people when they walk in, typically at any networking event, there's like 5 to 10 minutes of awkwardness where you're like, who do I talk to? And do I go to the bar? Do I go to the bathroom? Or do I pretend to take a phone call? I want volunteers like high-fiving people as they walk in, so they immediately feel a sense of relief. And so it's all these little customer experience things that people miss. I'd say just get those things right. Like, hire someone part-time from TaskRabbit for $50 an hour just to do the greeting. So when people walk in a room, they immediately feel good. And that sets the tone for the rest of the dinner. And then, of course, do your opening remarks, tell everybody why you're hosting this dinner and what you hope for them to leave with. You'd be surprised with the amount of people that host dinners and drop 5 to 10 grand on a dinner and never stand up to speak. And so nobody knows who's even hosting the dinner or like what the company is about. And to me, that those are just wasted opportunities, but they're so simple.
I feel like you're describing most early dinners that I ran for prospects over the years. Like, there was like a famous, like, I invited 15 people to a steakhouse and like 6 of them were vegan, and that went pretty well. I mean, they showed up, so that was on them, but they basically got like steamed broccoli for dinner, so that was a whoopsie. But yeah.
So Andrew, I had one thought for you since you're talking about your next frontier, and I just want to bring it up because you didn't mention it. I see so much money trying to target CFOs. Like they are just such a hard group to reach. CMOs tend to be out there more, and their budget is a little more fickle. But like, like Secret CFO, I don't know if you've seen him on Twitter. Like he has NetSuite, like it seems like there's just so many companies that want to target the CFO type folks. And there just aren't like peer groups for CFOs. Like they're very internally focused. They tend not to go to events. They're not visible. So I think sponsors would be dying to reach some of those guys, especially if they're on the treasury and finance side. Like a lot of your banking potential advisors, I think would be there. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there. Just my gut reaction when you're like, cool, we have a lot of CEOs and founders. Great. We have some product people. Before I went, my guess would be the CFOs would be better than actually the CMOs as customers. Just my 2 cents. So as somebody who knows nothing about your business and just met you 3 minutes ago, that's my expert opinion.
And I guess the CFOs control sort of the budget too, and the financial planning. That's a great idea. I'll look into that.
The one of the craziest events that I went to, I can't remember. I think Andrew, I might have told you about this, but like years ago, we had Apollo, like the PE firm, as an investor randomly in my first company, and they bought this like $50,000 ticket to this hotel, the Hotel Coronado, and basically the model was like all the companies pay $50,000. These were all like ed tech companies, and then the event hosts got all of the like CFOs and the people with budget at these like really big education buyers. So like Kaplan and Pearson and University of Phoenix and whatever. And they basically just like, hey, you guys are all tech companies that are trying to sell ed tech software. And then we're just going to get all the buyers. We're going to fly them out. We're going to put them up in, $900 a night hotel rooms at the Hotel Coronado. And I think my like back of napkin math was like, this event had, I think like 25 companies that had paid like $40,000 to $60,000 to like show up to this event in this like very small pool with like, 40 highly qualified buyers. And I was like, this is a pretty interesting way of like flipping the scripts at like the highest level. But I'm sure there's just like so many interesting permutations that you've seen. Are there anything like you've mentioned, from the small dinners to the massive, 3,000 person, events and parties? Is there anything that you've maybe started experimenting with event wise that you feel like is interesting, from either like, hey, if your company is sponsoring events, like this is an interesting way to do a sponsorship, or if you're a company trying to meet with prospects, like this is sort of an interesting twist outside of just your like typical like big gatherings or small dinners?
It's a really good question. I mean, so we've done these dinner sponsorships where they speak in the beginning for 2 minutes. We've done 1,000-person conferences where they'll speak on stage in front of 1,000 people, but those all follow the same format. Um, nothing I can think of right now. We did have this experience where sometimes we'll have sponsors come to us before we have any events planned, and they'll be like, I have like 200K I want to spend on like events with you, which is great. And then so we'll design an experience for them. And we've done this series where we've hosted 5 different multi-day mansion events in 5 different cities over the course of a year. And this is this company. It's an international company that's just looking for customers and investors and people to meet in America. I would just fill the room with all sorts of interesting people and drive ROI for them in that sense. So that's probably the most interesting relationship we've had, but I can't think of anything else.
Yeah, that's all good. And then you mentioned that this is a pretty high margin business. I mean, you don't have to get into the specifics. I'm just curious, like, if you think about for every like $10,000 of putting one of these events together, I guess like what's the typical breakdown? So that big
Hmm.
company comes and says like, hey, we have 200 grand we want to allocate to events. Like, how do you think about kind of custom form fitting events? Do you usually say, let's go blow that on 2 big events for 100K each? Do you try to split it down into, let's do 10 things at 20K each? Like, and then I guess like what's sort of the flow of like venue and staff? And obviously you have all these volunteers helping, which is crazy. But what does that usually look like?
Yeah. Well, the crazy thing is that if there's no food involved, if it's just like a happy hour, the venues actually pay us, and this is really rare to get nowadays. But um, I had this deal a while back where we partnered with and a lot of these deals came out of COVID, where these venues and these hotels had no leverage. And so there was this time where we had the 6-month deal with this 4-star hotel where they would pay us 6K a month to host a happy hour on their rooftop. And so, we had basically just 100% margin, except for, my staff, who at the time were just volunteers. Um, so it was very profitable back then. If it's a dinner, we'll try to work with we've worked at this restaurant for over, I'd say, like 80 of our dinners, and so they just give us really great wholesale pricing. Where a lot of event hosts and founders sort of fall into the trap is that they'll get sold on an open bar package that is like over 3 hours. It's like $100 to $120 per person. That's the biggest rip off you can do. Nobody's going to drink that much. And if you just push a little bit more and just be like, we'll do it in consumption, then you can lower your bill by about 80%. And so we optimize for costs just by negotiating just all the way to the bone. And usually like taking 60 to 80% off the original cost. Um, you're saying how I allocate the budget to like
Mhm.
staff and venues. Hopefully that answers some of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to like do events on we try to be more budget conscious on a lot of our events, or even our conferences will host in concert venues.
Hmm.
And so we have this huge conference that for 1,000 people you'd imagine would cost a couple hundred grand, but we spent less than 100 grand on that, just because we converted a concert venue on an off night to a tech events venue. So we'll get scrappy in sort of ways like that.
That's cool. Have you seen anything interesting, like idea wise, since you've been running this business? I guess related to events, or just like, hey, as I've been running my business, it would be nice to have XYZ. Like, I think related to events, the 2 things that just randomly popped into my mind that I've seen, I think in the last year, one is like, there's a few of these marketplaces out there where you can kind of set your city and your requirements, and there's all these restaurants or venues that sign
Mm.
up and they'll sort of mask it back to you, which I haven't really used them outside of one, but it was somewhat helpful. And then there's companies that are building they're trying to build like digital business cards, like, hey, you're at an event and you hit an app and you sort of transfer a bunch of information, so it makes it easier to either scan people coming into a larger event or just trade information with attendees. Like, I guess stuff in that vein. Like, have you found interesting tech that you use in your business, or just like interesting opportunities?
We love Luma. Luma is have you used Luma
Yeah.
before, the events platform? It's so underrated, and they're not they don't do a lot of marketing. They're just a great product. Um, I've been pitched, as you can imagine, I've been pitched so many event, AI agents that plan your events, or event marketplaces, or these platforms to find new venues and vendors. And recently, there's been an uptick in sponsorship marketplaces.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think it doesn't feel like a very big business, like a venture scale business. The sponsorship sort of software marketplace. And for most part, all the event planners I know just like doing it themselves. They don't really like outsourcing it to an agent. They like, if you think about events, it's a very intimate experience, and so people want to be really hands on. But the one thing that's been interesting, and this is sort of on a different vein, on the sort of thread of B2B marketing. Um, but direct mail B2B marketing. And so I've seen a bunch of startups now that now send their ICP, or offer a service that allow you to send their ICP like a gift in the mail, or postcard. And they're sort of going back to these traditional, analog ways of B2B marketing, which fits in the category of our B2B events. So that's been that's been interesting. I've been digging into that a little bit more, and I'm wondering what the combination would look like of, if you're trying to sell someone, to invite them to an event through a postcard in the mail along with a little gift, just a very physical sales experience. Nobody showing up at your door, but you get a bunch of these gifts in the mail, and then the final sales, you're at a really well planned event. And I wonder what that experience would look like in the future, when everyone is trying to optimize for AI selling online and through agents and through LinkedIn.
So I did look into like the numbers around the effectiveness of direct mail. Like they actually reached a low point in the 2010s. They had gone down by like a 25% effectiveness. So usually it would be like, say, a targeted campaign would be 4% response rate. They went down to 3% at the peak of kind of online advertising. But recently it's bounced back almost to where it was back pre kind of internet coming in, to where
Hmm.
physical kind of direct mail is actually working again. I found that fascinating. And I think it's reflective of what kind of makes your business work, which is the internet is so much slop now and so difficult to know what you're going to believe, that people are just hungry to be in
Hmm.
person in a curated environment full of badasses like Chris, obviously not me, but you kind of see the amazing trend that you're riding there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel like I think events and direct mail as two categories that more people should be looking into. Yeah, I think like the mailed gifts to prospects is super interesting. I think like this like hyper niche content idea. I think there's companies like Workweek and stuff that have done interesting stuff around like newsletters or communities around like some of these just for HR pros, just for CFOs, just for heads of merchandising or whatever. And yeah, I think that I've run into tons of companies over the last year who say that events, I think, is like one of the biggest drivers for their business. And then I think a bunch of other categories that people wrote off, like LinkedIn webinars, are like
Mhm.
back. Like more
Mhm.
businesses should probably be doing those, because everybody's like, now like everybody hates webinars, which I think they do. But if you're serious about evaluating a product or a service, like just getting the founder to riff for 45 minutes about all the details of like how they differentiate and how the product works, I think like stuff like that can be super valuable. Um, yeah, what I guess I know we're approaching the end of time here. I guess if people want to follow you, get in touch, what's the best way to kind of follow along with what you're doing, or get in touch with you about maybe doing an event together?
Yeah, my Twitter handle is this is streamed on Twitter, right?
Yeah, Twitter,
Oh,
YouTube, LinkedIn. The
cool.
analytics are broken, but it looks like we have a few thousand people on Twitter. Twitter's definitely the biggest channel in
Cool.
terms of live viewers. So
We have 3,700 on Twitter, 14 on Chris's LinkedIn, and 2 people on YouTube.
hell
So
yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter, on LinkedIn as well. I'm just that cartoon avatar everywhere. So just shoot me a DM if you want to do an event, if you want to go to an event. And then if you're interested in sponsoring something, go to meetfibe.com, meetfibe.com.
And where did the name come from again? You had like a kind of interesting story about this, if you're willing to tell it.
Yeah, so I used to work for this company called Bell Canada. It's Canadians' version of AT&T, and I worked there for 3 years. And honestly, I hated my life, hated my job. But I worked on this product called Fibe Internet, And so when I quit Google and when I went the entrepreneur path, I just named it Fibe to remind myself to never go back to that life. And also there's like a good connotation, fiber internet is the connectivity that powers the world. And, and we bring people together and sort of power connectivity. So that there's this sort of dual meaning. There's like a meme kind of meaning, and then there's the actual deeper meaning to it.
That's awesome.
Oh man, all of these sponsors you have want to sell to CFOs. Like I was like, oh, deal, just works.
SVB,
like SVB, ramp. It's like, oh, all right, yeah. So send me a gift from your new service when it works out.
Sweet. Well, Andrew, thanks for being here. This is awesome.
Of course. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Okay. Congratulations on your success, man. Super, super duper cool.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Yep. I think the most interesting thing that I almost circled back to, and then I forgot because I need to take better notes. We gotta have him back on to talk about how to recruit 700 volunteers to volunteer their time for a high margin business.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I think it's just part of that. Like, I think there's very few businesses that can get away with it. I think media is another one where you just see like huge amount of hours and user generated content poured into something that these like media companies can just like monetize the hell out of.
Yeah. Well, in New York, I think that totally works in some of these places like New York or San Francisco or LA or Austin. Your prototypical 20-something destination cities, Dallas, Atlanta. Because there's just so many people that have just moved to town. They got nothing else to do. They are happy to go meet some people and find their way in the world. I think you can get tons of it. For our conference, we would get volunteers. We had 2 or 3 people that were like, okay, give me a discounted ticket. I'll help out. My wife said no for some reason, but everybody, kind of other people said yes.
She's out. That's funny. Yeah, the event that I went to where I met Andrew in person, again, it was like 500 people, but it was like there's like 4 people working the door. Like he said, you like go up through this like cool elevator to this like old building in Chelsea, and there's like all these people greeting you at the door and like giving you drink tickets. And I was like, how many people did he staff for this? And he's like, oh, I only have 1 employee here. And it was pretty amazing. So it's cool business.
Well, I mean, the whole thing is super duper genius, right? Like there's these people that are difficult to reach for advertisers, and you go and you give them an easy on-ramp where you're not going to be heavily sold. We're going to give you a curated place of other badasses. We'll bring you in the door and then get paid by the sponsors who also just want to be there and underwrite the event. And everybody feels good about it. Nobody feels hardcore sold. And he pockets the difference. Like, man, that's great. Though in the first 3 minutes, he was like, I was like, how many events do you have to go to? He's like, about 300 a year. I was like, I'm out. I'm not leaving my house that often.
It's a lot. It's you got to be, but man, I mean, I think like for somebody, I don't know how old he is, but he's obviously young, and like to leverage that, like you talked about the investing side, like he was the like he knew everybody at this party. I mean, part of that job is just you're trying to get the same people back to a new event, and so he's just like getting mobbed. He actually was funny at this event. He had essentially this like VIP section, which was kind of weird for a tech event. And I was like, what is this? And he's like, it's kind of just where I like hide out behind a velvet rope so that people just like stop talking to me. So I can get like 20 minutes to just like breathe and have a drink of water.
Yeah. I do actually like being a host at an event more than I like being an attendee. Yeah. It's much more fun.
Being the connector is a lot better than just like awkwardly showing up with a name tag and like a soda water and just walking around and being like,
yeah,
what do you do? Yeah.
I did do a video on YouTube about how doing what he's doing as a 20-something is the best way to build your network. You just start throwing events and organizing them, and then suddenly everybody thinks you're somebody who can get stuff done. And it's like a great resume builder because most people can't throw an event.
Right.
Or get up and give a speech about, hey, who's our sponsor? Thank you for being here. Have fun. Bye. Like most people cannot do that. And it's like a great resume builder in terms of building your network. And when I was trying to find my way in the business community here in San Antonio, that was what I did. Right? And it worked.
I also think I think you can, I have no idea how much his business makes, but I wouldn't be just the fact that I've heard this from other friends that are in this space, like they will grind for 3 or 6 months in a market. And then within 6 months, like some guy at JP Morgan is reaching out and being like, hey, I heard you do cool tech events. Like we're in for 25 grand for the next one. These are like 200 people events because the cost to acquire a new business customer for JP Morgan has to be like tremendously high. And so they're just willing to like anything to get founders early in their journey, anything to connect with, CFOs, engineers, designers, whatever.
If you can get, if you can get eyeballs in today's market, you can monetize them really, really well. And I'm saying this as a guy with 90,000 followers on YouTube. We're getting like an inbound a day now for real money. Like, hey, I want to pay you $10, $15, $20,000 to underwrite a video that might get 250,000 views.
On like that note, this video is sponsored by OpenPhone.
Oh yeah. Speaking of sponsors, OpenPhone. We should do the read again, and then Reg is here, and we can do that. Do you want me to do the read this time?
Yeah. We'll take whatever read is better, and we'll clip it out for them.
I have a lot of practice. I should probably be good. All right, let me get it up here. So traditional phone systems weren't built for modern business. Missed calls means missed customers. An open phone is the smarter alternative built to help you work anywhere, stay connected, and never miss an opportunity. So with open phone, you can run your business from one app on your phone or computer, and open phone logs calls, creates summaries, and automates follow-ups. Its AI agent can answer calls for you, qualify leads, and route customers even after hours. 90,000 businesses, Chris. 90,000.
It's a lot.
I've already switched. And plans start at $15 a month, and you can try it for free. The call to action. Oh, wait, I'm not supposed to read that part. Get 20.
You nailed it. You're so good at this.
Yeah. If you go to OpenPhone, you can get 20% off your first 6 months at OpenPhone by going to openphone.com/founders. And that's openphone.com/founders. And if you have existing numbers, they can port them over for free, Chris. So your 1-900 Mix-a-Lot number, they can move that over for you.
That's amazing.
Open phone, no missed calls, no missed customers. Give them a try today. And thank you to them for underwriting our stream. Really appreciate it. How'd I do?
You nailed it. We'll just cut that. We'll cut that part out of the live stream that 6,000 people are listening to, where you read the call to action. But that's fine.
Call to action. Don't read this part. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Cool. Reg is here a little early.
Yeah,
he looks to be ready. Let's get going.
Howdy. Hey, guys. How are you?
How are you?
Hey, Reg. Have you met Chris before?
I've never met him in person.
Oh, he's not as funny in real life.
No, that's true.
Well, I mean, you did a killer job on those ad reads so far. So,
yeah, we're crushing it over here. The next one's going to be a skit. So I'm going to ring. It's open phone. Anyway, we're having fun.
I like it. Well done.
So Reg, let me try to introduce you, Reg, and then you can correct it. So Chris, Reg runs a roll-up of non-ferrous foundries located across the United States. So he has been reindustrializing America one piece of non-ferrous metal at a time, and has, historically in the build in public era of Twitter, talked a lot about the business. The build in public era is well over, for good reason, including for me. And is over the past couple of years gotten more involved in the business, and I think has a lot of insights in terms of what's happening outside of the tech bubble that you and I live in a lot. So, and lives in Minnesota and likes to ski and is a straight talker. I would say those are 1, 2, 3.
You nailed it right there. Oh yeah, I was reindustrializing before it was cool. Now it's the thing. So Here we are.
Well, you have a little bit of a conundrum being in Minnesota, where it is very cold, but you like to ski, so you have to travel far to get good skiing. I know, but
yeah, this is all 100% my wife's fault. She's based here as a CEO of a company, so as soon as she sells that, we're out of here. I'm gone. Bye. So, yep, exactly right.
Are you in Minneapolis? What part are you in?
Yeah, we're in Minneapolis.
Cool.
For sure. Yep. So it's really convenient with the airport being a Delta hub to get everywhere. Easy skiing then. But yeah, it's it was probably in the 80s, so that means it's probably going to be snowing by like in 2 weeks from now. So
yeah, that's how it goes. How did you get into foundries and castings and this whole world?
Yeah, really couldn't stand corporate America after 17 years. Decided I was going to go buy a small business or start a small business or join a PE firm as some sort of an operator. Didn't really know what. A foundry came up for sale about 30 minutes from where I lived. I'd never stepped foot in a foundry. 4 months later, I procured the first one, and 8 years later, here we are with 7 of them. So, good use of my electrical engineering degree to go into something that has absolutely nothing to do with electrical engineering.
That's how it goes
Good.
usually.
Exactly.
What types of businesses were you looking at? I guess knowing nothing about this, you sounded pretty open to, maybe it's a roll up, maybe it's a PE company as an operator, maybe I buy something directly. Like, were you looking for a while? And I guess what made the first one attractive where you ended up pulling the trigger?
No, it was as much as I just couldn't wait to get out of corporate. Couldn't wait another Sunday scary, another dreading going to work on Monday. I had no idea what I was looking for to buy. It's not now everybody's got the playbooks and don't do heavy capex, recurring revenue, all the things that they say to do. I did the exact opposite. So clearly I'm really smart and I know what I'm doing. But yeah, so I wasn't specifically looking. I didn't have a whole lot of a thesis. I had no concept of what roll-ups really were. I mean, I knew of them, but and the running joke is that I couldn't spell ETA, much less knew what it is. So just stumbled into it and, had a great banker. And he said, here, fill out the SBA paperwork. You worry about the business. I'll worry about the money, and signed my life away 4 months later.
So in terms of going from like the idea of buying a business to actually finding that one, like, so your path was you just kind of stumbled on the idea of the foundries. Is that how did that go down?
Yeah, it just happened to come up for sale. Generally speaking, I graduated college in a time where it wasn't cool to go into manufacturing, yet I worked for 3 or 4 of the largest manufacturers in the world, big engineering firms like General Electric and Honeywell, et cetera. So for me, it made no sense to go into tech. You guys could run circles around me in tech. Why the heck would I go step over there? I'd rather, when everybody else was zigging, I was zagging per se, if you want to go that way. But I just grew up, again, same running joke. If you could drop something on your foot and it hurts, then you're probably in the right industry for me. So yeah, I coded when I was in college and a little bit out of there, but beyond like Excel or Office VBA, you're really beyond my level of knowledge anymore about how to code.
And so what are all of these, I guess, are all of the foundries that you have now? You said there's 7 of them. Do they each have unique specialties? I guess, is it like, car parts or for airlines, or is it like pretty broad in terms of just the customer bases?
Yeah, geographically, it really dictates what we have, depending on. So what we see just as the types of industries are totally different in New England than they are in South Carolina, than they are in Ohio, Minnesota, Missouri. So that really dictates a lot of it. You get mining and metals and that when you get closer into the Southwest and gas, and in the Northeast, you're a lot more marine and that type of stuff, and then kind of a mix of everything in between. So very, very diversified, even though it is mainly aluminum. There's a little bit of brass, bronze, zinc. The vast majority of it, it's pretty diversified. We tend not to have huge up years or huge down years when it comes to our existing customers, just because a lot of them balance each other out. Most of our growth comes from adding in new customers, and that really is, again, dictated by where in the country it is.
And what are you seeing right now in terms of like the impact on stuff from a tariff standpoint and that sort of thing? Is it good, bad, non-mattering to you guys?
We've definitely seen some price increases. There's no doubt about commodity cost impacts. I think the big deal, I mean, you're probably talking in the 5% type range, just because obviously when you see the 50% or 100% tariffs, it's only on a portion of the business. It's not like the whole business is up 50 or 100%. So it's probably an impact between 5 and 10%, depending on the type of metal and the product. We haven't seen a huge impact. We have 2 sets of customers. One set of customers would be they buy mainly American, a lot of domestic they haven't seen much of a fall off at all. Maybe they've seen a little bit of an uptick. The ones where we are is the larger customers that would buy a lot of product overseas. We may only be 5 or 10% of their total casting purchase. So they're paying that extra tariff and duty, on the other 80, 90% of their business, and that's slowing down. And then we just get slowed down. We just get drug along with it is essentially what happens, right? Just because the other stuff is going down. So it's probably been a net negative generally. Medium to long term, we've put in some new equipment. We installed it almost exactly a year ago before a hurricane hit South Carolina, which was a lot of fun. But the the stories on really what we've seen is just the growth because of the capex we've put in. It was, but again, going back to I didn't know what I was doing in ETA. Heavy capex industries. The good news is once you spend the capex once, you don't need to do it for another 15 or 20 years normally. But that's allowing our growth right now is we're able to invest in that when other people aren't.
And how, I guess, what do these businesses typically look like behind the scenes? Is it sort of, is there generally like a pipeline of things that like are being delivered to customers like on the business development side, or is it just like one-off requests that just sort of pop up on sort of like a purchase order basis?
So I thought you were going a very different direction with what happens behind the scenes at a foundry. I was like, I don't know, Dante's fourth circle of hell would be the best way to explain it. But
well, that's my next question. Yeah. You can think about that as you're answering.
So we've got a full-time sales team that goes out. So we get a lot of stuff, partly because we've been in business long enough and we're growing. Very few foundries on a small side of where we are, where we started from especially, are looking for new business to grow. And these are folks in their 60s and 70s. Bills have been paid off for a long time. Growth is really messy and really painful in this industry. And so for them, they're like, yeah, I'm good not having to worry about those. They're unsellable businesses anyway for the most part, so I just drag them out. But for us, partly that name, so word of mouth goes a really long way. We get some stuff through websites, random people finding us, they search us. Same thing on LinkedIn and Twitter, or X, whatever we're calling it these days. So we get a lot of that inbound. And then the biggest upside for what we have is our sales team going out and physically knocking on the doors and calling customers. Like they actually go really do sales still. Well, they're sit down at a conference table. They'll walk the manufacturing floor. They'll talk to engineers and buyers and whomever it might be to drum up, what we can do. Because there's a lot of customers, because we've spent the last 30 or 40 years sending businesses, especially manufacturing overseas, the talent that's in in the US right now, we have to educate a lot of our customers. They quite literally don't know how to make castings. They have a design. We've seen this, I can't tell you how many times, where a new engineer or someone new, however it might be, will copy what's called a spec block. So they tell us, hey, here's what the tolerances are, here's what you have to make it to, et cetera. They'll throw it on the drawing or the model that we have, and we'll ask them why, and they have no idea. They're like, I don't know, the last one we had was on there, so we just copy and paste it into the new one. And so there's a lot of manufacturability, a lot of that, because when you go overseas, you don't do a lot of design. If you're relatively small, medium-sized businesses, that's a team over there that'll take care of it. They'll own your tooling, they'll own the design, they'll take care of everything for you. That's just not the way the domestic market works, partly because there's a lot of IP, trademark infringement, all kinds of stuff that you would run into if we would do that, not to mention insurance nightmares everywhere. That's just not the overseas market they have to deal with.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned that a lot of these I think you said a lot of these smaller, like especially mom and pop operations, are generally not sellable. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Like in this market, what does that mean?
Real estate's worth more than the businesses. I mean, a lot of times they'll have something that's been there for 50 or 70 years in an area, and you'll have 10 or 20,000 square feet on a half an acre that's worth $10 million, and the business does $200,000 a year in SDE or something like that. There's no way that you can sell them. So you can sell the book of business, but a lot of times you can't even sell unless it's big enough. You can't sell the real estate in the facility where it sits because the owners and their families are so involved. When they leave, the critical mass is gone. The knowledge base is gone. We have to pick those products up and move them into one of our other facilities where we've trained people, got them up and running on a process. They know what products to build. And so I'm quite literally going through one of these right now, and told my CFO about it last week. We've got someone that they want out, but it's 3 of 5 people, roughly speaking, are in the family, and they're all in their 60s and 70s. I mean, the $2 million top line business or $3 million, depending on the year, and they can't sell it. There's nobody left to run it. So their only option is to come to us. And, bigger foundries want nothing to do with that. It's a total pain for them to run with, but that's the model that we have, is trying to kind of consolidate. And like, Michael made this nice comment that I was doing a roll up as if I had any idea what that was. We just stumbled upon it and realized, hey, this business model might work. Maybe we should do more of this.
Yeah.
So for the, like, I would say micro foundries like that, and if that's the wrong term, I apologize, but for the really small ones that are unsellable, are you able to structure those in kind of really favorable ways? I imagine earnouts or profit shares or royalty schemes would be kind of the ability there.
Yeah, normally they want some amount of money up front just to be able to pay their taxes and some of that. But then a lot of it looks more like an earnout, and or just they have a lot of what's called manufacturers reps in this space, which are a sales team that goes out and sells for you but doesn't actually work for you. So they might represent 10 brands. They might represent an aluminum casting person, a brass, steel, iron, who knows what it would be. And so we can actually structure those to look a lot like what a rep agreement would look like. In other words, saying, if we buy $2 million worth of this work for you and half of them leave, you'll get paid a commission structure on the $1 million that stays. And they have an incentive them to do everything that they can to get that customer to transition over to us, because then they'll get paid for 1 year, 3 years, 5 years. It really depends on what the deal is and the structure that they want.
And are they often trying to retain the real estate and sell the business? Is that how they think about it, or?
Yeah, it really depends. I mean, just to give you an idea what we're talking about in numbers here, there were, call it in the neighborhood of 4,000 foundries available 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago. 80% of those are gone out of business. Of the ones I've looked at now, there's maybe 300 that I've profiled, that I've talked to. Of those, maybe 30. So you're talking in something that started at maybe 800. I get down to like 30 of these things, and it's completely dependent. There's some that are out in the middle of nowhere where the real estate's worth nothing, and that's great for us. There's other ones that are right in the middle of town, and the real estate is worth 10x the business, and that's all they care about is just the real estate. And then kind of everything in between, especially when you get on the edge of the suburbs, you kind of get where the real estate might work out, but then you're also seeing so much growth in the suburbs that you're now dealing, as soon as you go and purchase it, it's not like running a little tech shop with computers and coffee makers. These are big things that go boom in the night starting at about 4 a.m. And typically residential high rises don't prefer to have that right next to their bedroom windows, apparently. So it's a little dicey depending on where you are.
Elitist pigs. How dare they?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what's one thing, as you were mentioning the real estate, like still walking around parts of Soma and San Francisco where you have like Cushman and Wakefield marketing this new like $350 million high rise next to like a blacksmith shop that has like the same footprint of like, owning a half block in Soma. And I'm like, man, that guy's just hanging on for dear life and sitting on a $50 million parcel of land probably, but crazy.
I know 2 people that sold out their real estate. One was about 15 or 17 million dollars, and it was an environmental nightmare. There was probably $100 million cleanup, and the developer snapped it up without even thinking about it.
That's crazy.
That's wild to me. Yeah, but it was a great location to build mixed use something or other.
And how concerned or how problematic is the talent side of this business or these businesses, right? Because you mentioned a few times, like the typical or a common profile is these are either family businesses, people are retiring, people are trying to move on. Nobody has that specialized knowledge. So when you're looking at a situation where 3 of the 5 people are in their 60s or 70s, they're all related, they're going to probably leave the business and retire. Like, how do you backfill that with younger talent? Like, how does recruiting work here?
Yeah, so our only option is that we try and grow people. So we'll have
Mm.
them in a different foundry. It might be start as someone on a line, move up to a supervisor role, move up to some sort of a assistant plant manager. And then when we buy another one, which we haven't done in a little over 2 years now, 2.5 years, getting really itchy, but that's a different story. We are able to move them from other places, just trying to teach us or teach them how we run. And then if the people all leave in that leadership void, we can take. I've been in there before doing this. My CTO can jump in, my head of ops can jump in, and then we try and land somebody. Either we bring someone in from outside if we have someone capable of doing it, or we go and more typically we'd have to bring someone in that has been through a role in other places, just because our output is anywhere from 2 to 4x when we buy them. Just because of the processes and systems and everything you put in, it just moves really fast for typically where they came from, or either whether that was at the existing facility they have or a different facility.
Yeah. And you mentioned it's been a couple years since you've closed on a deal and you're getting itchy. Is that like just the market is weird right now, price wise? Is it just finding like getting the stars to align with the right, one of those 30 properties or companies that you're sort of circling around that you find interesting?
Yeah, it's some of everything. The biggest thing is I had to step back in and run the company day to day about a year ago. I had to fix a bunch of the fundamentals, and I had to get rid of, a third of our workforce and a third of our executive team all had to be rebuilt. And we had things like our ERP that we literally have a team on site right now, a handful of people having to fix our ERP over the next months. There's just been a lot of stuff that we need to get back to having a strong foundation underneath the business before we go and start rebuying again. We're right on the edge of it right now. It's just partly my team has been through the ringer the last year with me, so I want to give them a little bit of a break and hopefully build that foundation out. And I don't know, 6 months or a year or something, but there's just getting to be way too many opportunities. I know of 8 foundries that have gone out of business in the last 6 weeks. Most of them probably wouldn't have been great fits. We'll get a little bit of the business here and there, but if we were being really aggressive right now, we probably would have taken all those down, maybe 6 of them at least. But yeah, just not the right time for us currently. Just need to rebuild the org and get things fixed and let my team breathe a little bit.
Chris, just so you know, I take credit. I'm personally responsible for one of the guys listed on Reg's website. So Patrick Sullivan, I knew him from my CrossFit gym, became a friend of ours. He was 30 years younger than us, so we kept calling him the intern. He would hang around with us and ask business questions. And then he and Reg met, and next thing I know, he's working for Reg. So it's awesome.
Nice.
So it was a 30-minute interview. They didn't realize he was being interviewed for because he was reading, I'll make the 3 books up. It was like Bronte, it was like a modern biography, and then it was some whatever smut novel or something like that, whatever. But it was 3 completely different books. And I sat down and started chatting to Patrick, and after 30 minutes sitting around in a ski chalet, if you want to call it that, right before we went out, it's like, Patrick, you're coming to work for me. I told Girdley, I was like, hey, who's he working for? He's like, I don't know. I'm like, good. Then I'm not stealing it from someone else, because he will work for me at some point in time. And once Patrick and our stars aligned, 12 months later, that rock star works for us now. So
yeah, he was working for UFP, United Forest Products, I think, up in Colleen or some temple, some place you're like, I just want to keep driving past this place.
Waco, Temple, wherever it is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Michael and I have a very similar way of hiring people. His is, like a 9-step process detailed out. Mine is over orange juice and a few books at 8:30 in the morning. It works the same.
At Copper Mountain.
It's fine. Yeah, exactly. It's no big deal.
So where do you see all this going? Like in terms of the reindustrialization, your corner of it, all that kind of stuff?
So our biggest thing is we say we want to reindustrialize. We say we want manufacturing here in this country, but we don't really know what that means. I'm not completely positive we have the workers. So if you ask me what's going to happen in 10 years, I think it's a lot more clear in that you have a bunch of these humanoid and or similar type robots in automation that are being fed obscenely great models through LLMs and other AI ML tools, et cetera. And that's where your workforce comes from. The problem right now is we do not have the supply chains to support anywhere near as much as what we think we want to bring back into the US. We've got zoning requirements that are problems. We've got permitting requirements that are problems. We pay way more in electricity and gas. People are getting ore and different raw materials subsidized overseas. So we just need, I think we're on the right concept and path, but it's a massive, massive policy shift. And it can't just be at the federal level. It's got to go all the way down, to the NIMBY type concept of local zoning. And so I think eventually we get there. I think it's going to be really messy and really, really ugly and really hard the next 3 to 5 years, assuming we even stay on this path and, we don't change administrations and completely change all of our plans and processes and what we're going down. We need to have a much better, more thought out kind of government policy and organizational structure from the top all the way to the bottom, or else this is just going to churn and be miserable. We'll spend way more money as a country, and we're not going to get the upside out of what we really wanted to do and what we needed to do.
I mean, as you hear anybody talk who's like a public figure, does anybody get it?
Not many. I mean, so there's some people that have worked in the businesses, I think, that at least have an understanding, but you still have an entire generation of folks that just didn't do manufacturing. You go to the East and West coasts, there's some pockets. You mentioned a few areas in San Francisco. There's some areas, but California's chased almost all the foundries out of that state. It's so hard to build and operate there. New England has the exact same problems. Now you go down to South Carolina, we move in, and senators, governors, representatives, you name it, they all come stop in, knock on our door, ask how they can help and whatever else we can do. It's just a totally different animal because, they lost the textile mills 30, 40 years ago. They're dying to get that back. You see the same thing in Michigan and Ohio and Wisconsin and some of those states. But you get outside of there's just no fundamental understanding and knowledge and how they're going to solve that. So when these people talk, it's like, okay, but it's like, you're going to build an iPhone here. Well, that's fine, but you're going to need to bring $100 billion worth of other supply chains to build that one product, because all of that exists and it doesn't exist here. So again, some of it's moving too fast. Some of it's going to have incorrect, or at least not what they want to have as their impacts on it. We're just going to have to work through it. I think it's the right thing. I mean, we couldn't even manufacture masks and simple things during COVID. I mean, if that doesn't scare the hell out of everybody, I don't know what should. So we went too far, but it's going to need to be very strategic and a lot of alliances across the world in order to make this work for us medium term.
Yeah, to some extent, you get the folks that just don't even understand it, or they tell you they're interested in helping, but in practice they totally do nothing to fix the core problems. Like in the Northeast or California, yeah, we'd love to have great jobs here, and then you try to bring them, they're just like, no, we were just kidding. They were sorry.
Those great jobs, different ones.
Not those great jobs, just the ones that this old person here who has this beach house they bought for $50 and a bag of Doritos back in the 60s. Like, we can't get in their way because they donate and they call my office. But then I think there's the other part of it, and I see it here in Texas, where you try to do stuff, and even though the politicians show up and the bureaucrats show up and say, hey, we're going to help you and we're here to help it, but then in the practice, it's like they don't even understand how to help when you go to ask for it, or you point out a thing. They're like, no, that is helping. Don't you understand?
Yeah.
Us stopping you is helping you. You don't get it.
Yeah, it was during my corporate days is we're from corporate and we're here to help. Now it's we're from the government and we're here to help. Like, neither one of them have ever helped in my life, but we used to be able to do all these things. We used to be able to build bridges in months, and now, you see things like in Baltimore, you see these just all over the place. It's crazy. In quite literally the city I live in Minneapolis, if I were to buy one of the guys who own the foundry here and I would do it on an asset sale, not a stock sale, I couldn't operate it. It banned heavy industry. These are jobs where people can make $60, $80, $100,000 a year with not even a high school education, and they're banning these jobs. Same thing in New Hampshire. Like I asked, there was like a bunch of land. I want to consolidate a bunch of foundries. Went up and talked to these folks, and I was like, "Yeah, I'd like to build this." And they walked me through this area. I was like, "Yeah, probably 40 or 50,000 square feet." They're like, "Oh, what's a foundry?" And I brought up pictures, and they're like, "Oh yeah, see, this is an industrial zone, but we were thinking more like breweries and candle making, not like actual." I'm like, "That's not industrial."
Like, no, we're making candles just out of
Yeah,
aluminum. They're aluminum candles. Yeah. Don't look into it too far, but trust me, they're cylinders and they're
yeah, exactly. I didn't think of that, Chris. That's
There
genius
feels
right
like
there.
there actually does feel like there's got to be some loophole, which is like, you know how like when Converse sneakers are like imported into the US, there's like a small bit of like felt so that it's not a shoe, it's like a
It's a
textile.
slipper.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah.
slipper.
We fill 0.01% of all of our casted material with wax, and we put a fucking wick in it, and we call it a day. You know.
I'm in. I'm in that.
And well, then the government shows up, and they're like, "Are you guys making pipe bombs in here?" So different problem, probably. But
minor detail. Don't worry about it.
Are the problems? I guess is the primary issue with kind of chasing those jobs away in places like New Hampshire or Minnesota. Is it? You mentioned the zoning piece. Is it also just? Is it like worker safety issues? Like, I guess like what are the problems or the barriers in certain markets?
It really, depending on where you are, like our Minnesota facility is phenomenal. It's the first one we bought. We put a lot of stuff into it. After 8+ years of training people and getting it better incrementally, little by little, it's great. Now you have to deal with the 10% state income tax rate. That's a whole other ball game. But yeah, in places like New Hampshire, there's just not enough people. South Carolina, where we have another facility, we can't get enough good, knowledgeable people. So we have to train and move them down there. So from a worker standpoint, safety perspective, we try and do everything imaginable to keep. And we've got full, they call PPE, so personal protective equipment. Guys that are dealing with the 1400 degree molten metal, they're pretty much head to toe in fireproof products so that they don't burn themselves. Same thing. We try and keep the proper gloves and you name it, whatever it might be for different parts of the processes they go through. But insurance is a nightmare. The requirements on the environmental, and this is where we've seen some of this relax, obviously. We've had things that OSHA's put in. We've got, for instance, I've got records of pulmonary testing on my guys for 40 years. There's not a bit. We don't have auditory issues. We don't have pulmonary issues. So in other words, because there's silica dust, it's a long story. I won't go into it. But OSHA made a change and made it essentially 10 to 100 times more restrictive, where I have 40 years of data with no one ever having a problem in my foundry. Then I had to put in like $50,000 worth of different testing equipment that said, oh, well, now you don't meet the standard. Just a totally made up standard that somebody cooked up in some office somewhere that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. I mean, it's in the tens or hundreds of millions of dollars for all of our industrials because everybody has to. So cement providers, everybody else, they are under the same rules I am. There's the same thing about working out in the heat. We had a ton of problems with that. It's just one regulation after the next. It's like if I had a bunch of problems, people were dying on my facilities or whatever, I agree, but we have none of that. And we just keep getting more and more regulations. And it's a full-time job just for us to jump through all the safety, environmental, HR, it's a constant addition of this thing and that thing. And, it's just, you employ multiple people in nothing more than jobs that tell the government what they want or need to hear. It's kind of insane. Go overseas, guess what they're not worried about there?
They're less concerned about decades of pulmonary testing on all of their employees.
Yeah. They're just like, oh, we lost an employee yesterday. I don't know. He just didn't show up to work. Well, he fell in a vat of metal. Oh, maybe. We're not sure about that.
Yeah.
Maybe. It's possible. Yeah, it's just different animal.
Yeah. By
the way, I'm not advocating we should go back to that, just to clarify, because someone is going to tear me up on social media for saying I'm this rich business owner that just wants to put his employees in harm's way, even though the number one thing in every one of my facilities and health and safety of employees is the number one goal. I'll still catch hell for that comment somehow. It'll end up in the depths of Twitter hell, and we'll
It's
get the
good.
mob
We'll
out there
come
again.
to your defense. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm worried. Let me tell you.
What and then you mentioned, I think over some, medium to long term horizon, you feel like clearly, there's a ton of room for automation and, to some extent, obviously, like I'm sure the equipment manufacturers directly are investing in their own robotics and automation. But I guess like
Yep.
in the short term from kind of investments that you're able to make, have you found interesting things like automation wise that can help with sort of like, this foundry used to be run with 5 people, now we can run it with 4 because of XYZ, or does that not really exist yet?
For sure it does. So the piece of equipment, just to give you an idea, the piece of equipment that we put in a year ago, I was not joking about that. I didn't think it was possible that I was going to have to worry about a hurricane 600 miles inland, but I installed this piece of equipment. We commissioned on Wednesday, and Friday the hurricane hit and we were out for 10 days and it cost me $250,000. It was awesome. Such good times. But yeah, that piece of equipment we put in, what it replaces most of the work is you could do maybe 3. If you were to hire someone new, they make maybe 2 or 3 good molds an hour. The existing workers that know what they're doing can make 3 or 4 an hour. This machine can do 150 an hour by pressing a button. So I mean, it's 50 times more efficient, somewhere in that neighborhood. So replaces 50 workers per se. Now people hear that like, why would you replace workers? I was like, well, I can't get the workers, so I'm not replacing anybody. It's just growing sales. It's just incremental sales. It's not taking one person out and replacing it with a machine. Certainly, as we see foundries fall off and you see the supply drop and the demand increase, which I think is what we're going to see over the next few years, it's the only way to go. There's no, and even then, you still need some amount of people around to see. It's not like this is going to be lights out factories. You never get to that point. I mean, that would be hundreds of millions of dollars versus, $5 million or something CapEx investment. So you won't see it to that full automation level, but 60, 70, 80%. And then what we're trying to do right now, my CTO especially, he's talking with a lot of different vendors and seeing the direction they're thinking of going, and then seeing where we can marry foundry technology with other, let's call it industry technology, and say, okay, can we take this type of automation over there and this type of equipment from the foundry? Can we marry that together? And there's a lot of stuff coming with vision systems, AI, the ability to figure that stuff out. And certainly there's a lot of stuff in the back office, but everything is moving that way. It's just a matter of, obviously it takes capital investments to do some of that stuff, but sometimes even harder to find is that you need to be able to staff the white collar folks to be able to do that. Really easy to find engineers and tech companies, really hard to find engineers that have any idea what to do in a foundry and still be able to code. So we've had to bring folks like my CTO in, who's an expert in automation and a lot of things in other parts of the industry, food manufacturing and automotive manufacturing, that type of stuff. And he had to learn the foundry industry and then squash those two things together for us to make it work.
Are there do you guys are there like industry conferences for foundry owners and operators? Because if so, I want to go because that sounds like a party,
You have no idea. Someday I'm happy to tell you some of these stories. It will not be on this live stream right now, though. But yeah, there are a couple of different large societies. There's a non-ferrous version. There's also one American Foundry Society. Then there's global ones as well. But yeah, for sure, and that comes from all over. You get a mix. So I sit on the board of one, done some executive councils for the other, and there's everything from foundry owners that are much smaller than what CaneCast is now. You might have one facility that Graham and Grandpa opened, and they're doing, I don't know, make it up, $2 million, $2.5 million a year, all the way up to multi-billion-dollar companies that sit on those boards that I'm with. So a lot of, there's 800 or 1,000 or whatever. Like I mentioned before, there's like 300 that fit for where we are. But it's a really, just to give you an idea, like people talk about manufacturing. I'm going to make the number up, 40,000 machine shops or something like that in the country versus 300 of what we're talking about. So you can just see the scale level is just completely different. I know there's no foundry in the country I could probably, if I really had to talk to somebody there, there's nobody that wouldn't pick up the phone and help somebody else in the industry.
Yeah.
Partly because they know it's dying. I mean, if we don't do something to fix it, there's not a lot of chances. There's a few people that I know that are multi-generational, and their parents owned it, grandparents owned it, and they've taken it over that are my age or maybe even a little younger. And I know one other person like me that has bought a foundry. That has nothing to do with what we were in, but that's it across the country. It's an industry that is desperately needed. 80 or 90% of all the products you see with metal in outside, there is a casting from a foundry in that. They're everywhere. You used to have no idea. There's hundreds, if not thousands, of castings, on places like airplanes and cars and trains and all that. Everything that runs our infrastructure is built on foundries, one way or the other.
Yep. And is it a size issue mostly for at least the types of companies that you play in, that like PE funds aren't rolling them up? It's not worth it to them, or they don't have a model that works, or they're concerned about some of the regulatory issues, or kind of all the above?
No, so private equity, so either captive. So what's captive would mean that a company owns it. I'll make it a Boeing owns a foundry and they make their own parts for themselves. Mm-hmm. That's captive. Or private equity, somewhere in the neighborhood of 70% of all foundries in the country are either captive or private equity owned. They're just larger than what we are. Yep. We operate in a space that's too small. And that was a little bit on purpose once we started to figure this out, where I didn't want to go fight PEs and VCs. Now we're large enough that we could go get that money just because of the model and how we rolled up some of these places. But, at the time, they wouldn't want anything to do with it. They don't want to go fight for a $500,000 a year company that you're just practically just adding in a sales line, more or less. It's just not worth their time. There's a lot easier ways to make a lot more money.
For sure. Well, thanks for being here. I know we're at time. If people want to follow your business, I guess where are the best places to find you?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, X, whatever. I'm not posting a whole lot there anymore. Kind of meh. We got over that whole thing, and it just turned out randomly get hate on there. I'm like, do I really need this right now? So I'll get back to it eventually. Once we get back to buying stuff and doing some things, not just operating the business, it'll be more fun. But they can always reach out. Happy to help anybody on there. I've made every mistake imaginable buying businesses, so it should be easy for me to, at least provide a fake answer.
Dude, you're my hero. You haven't posted since July. That's freaking awesome.
And dude, I'm just kind of over it. Like, meh. It is, I don't know.
Got to go flip over to YouTube with Girdley.
Yeah, it was fine for a while, but and obviously, Holdco Conf kind of was spawned out of this Twitter group, but yeah, a ton of great friends, like 15, 20. We got a group of 12. They're just CEO people. And there's a few other people I've met here and there, but like legit lifetime good friends off of there, and kind of like, it feels like it's used its useful value, ready to move on to something else. But I use it once in a while to pick up new hires or something like that.
Man, I'm holding out. I hope it comes back, but I don't know.
We'll see.
Think about the old days as the old days, according to Slim Charles from The Wire.
Oh my God. I didn't expect a Wire reference. That wasn't on my Tuesday morning bingo card. Well done, Michael.
It's a great scene where Bodie is like, back in the old days, the Barksdale people would be out here, we'd be gun blazing, all that stuff. And Slim Charles says, the thing about the old days is the old days. It's like, oh man, Slim Charles is really smart. There's some arguments that Slim Charles is actually the smartest character on the entire thing. It's pretty good.
I could see that. I'd have to think about that a little more, but I could see that argument.
Yeah, give it some. Go through and think about everybody else. Everybody, Prop Joe, all the different folks, and ask yourself who was smarter than Slim Charles through the whole thing. Like who played the game better. So there's not many. There's the few candidates.
I know what Michael's next YouTube video is going to be about. It's going to be a rant about Slim Charles and the genius behind the man. Yeah.
I like that. We should white paper this. Let's get the LLMs. Dude. I think we should figure this out. Let's just ask it. I'm going to
be some objective answer here. Yeah.
I want to see. I want to see what each of the LLMs offer us in terms of what this is gonna. I'm super curious now. All right, I'll text you after I look it up. I love it.
I'm gonna get ChatGPT deep research working on this. I will report back with what it says. Okay.
I love it.
Anyway,
All right,
figure out the wrap up.
Girdley's like, I got nothing now. I'm completely. You got shiny object there, Michael. I love it. Well done.
Yeah, that's good. Well, thanks for being here. I'll hit you up the next time I'm in Minneapolis. We have a place on Mille Lacs, so I'm in Minneapolis quite a bit on our way up to Northwoods. So
Phenomenal fishing lake.
yes. Yeah.
If only you could keep walleyes there, but I'm not jumping in the middle of that political argument.
No, that's a whole. We'll get into the whole casino issues and netting fish issues on a separate live stream. Yeah.
I won't get you guys canceled here on this live stream to get into
that.
Yeah.
The Ojibwe tribe will come after me heavy over some fishing regulation rant that I have. So we'll stay out of that for now. Well, sweet. Thanks for being here.
All right, boys. Enjoy. All right. Have a good one.
Good Chris, stream. I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Open Phone?
I have. Actually, wait, no, I haven't. What do they do? What is this?
Open Phone. Well, Chris, let me stretch here. Okay. Traditional phone systems were not built for modern business, Chris. You have missed calls, meaning missed customers. And so Open Phone is the smarter alternative built to help you work anywhere, stay connected, and never miss an opportunity. So you can run your business from one app on your phone or computer, and Open Phone logs calls, creates summaries, and automates follow-ups. It's AI agent, Chris. Believe it or not, it is AI enabled. Can answer calls, quantify leads, and route customers even after hours. Over 90,000 businesses have already switched to Open Phone, and plans start at $15 a month, and you can try it for not two, not one, but $3. So you can get 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/founders. That's openphone.com/founders. And if you have existing numbers, they can bring them over for free. Open Phone means no missed calls and no missed customers. So thank you to them for sponsoring today. And I think I got better that time with the
That was great. I was going to interrupt and say, but what's the call to action? You nailed it. That was great. You've clearly done this before. Thank you, Open Phone. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We appreciate it.
How'd we do on numbers? I think you crushed me today. 4,400 viewers from me, 2,100 from you, or vice versa. You had 4,400, I had 2,100. So my lack of focus on Twitter is showing these days. So someday I'll be big time again.
All I care about is building up the YouTube channel, and then I can become YouTube famous by proxy through your existing audience. So
look, all we care about is how many customers does Open Phone get out of this stream. That's what we care about.
15.
We did have a cancellation next week, so we got to work on.
I think that was a couple weeks out.
A couple weeks out. Yeah. For Andrew can't make it.
Yep. We've got Alex Torelli and David Phillips next week.
Should be legit. Okay. Well, cool. And how do you feel about our new branding?
I like it. I like Founders Live. It see, this is perfect because it actually for Reg, it's sort of like we have like the casted gears moving, which applies to his business. And for everybody else, it's like the interworking gears of technology and media and private equity and everything else. It's perfect.
I love where it's going.
Thanks, AI.
Great guest today. 10 out of 10 by you. So we'll see you next week.
All right. See you then.